Please be seated. The court is now back in session. Again, the floor is given to the Deputy Co-Prosecutor to continue putting further questions to the witness. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I resume my questions, just a logistic matter, just to let the court know of how we plan to divide our time with the civil party lawyers. They've asked for 3 sessions. Our plan, if it is agreeable to the court, is that they will actually start tomorrow, perhaps in the afternoon, maybe in midway through the first session, do 1.5 sessions Thursday, 1.5 sessions Monday morning, and then I will resume and do the remaining time from there. That is our plan, if that's acceptable to the court. I want. Mr. Witness, and Your Honor, at this time I'd like to ask the witness about document E3/2133, E3/2133. So may I provide that exhibit to the witness?
Yes, you may.
The document you've been handed is a 1-page document titled Names of Prisoners under Brother Hui Srey to be eliminated. There is a list of 18 names, and then there appears, the document is dated 23 July 1977. And then there is a handwritten note at the bottom which states total number of persons 178, total prisoners including children smashed 178 persons including 160.
Please hold on, Deputy Co-Prosecutor and Counsel Corporate, you have the floor.
Last week, a corrected version was filed and notified. The word smashed does not appear anymore because it doesn't appear in the original command. So the prosecution should be using the corrected version.
Thank you. I did have the old. Mr. Witness, why don't we have you? Do you recognize the handwriting? Well, first of all, do you recognize who signed this report?
This document, as well as the handwriting, I believe I made my comment already since during the investigation stage. And it is not difficult for me to acknowledge this document as well as the handwriting of Ho, and the document itself belonged to S21.
So it's Ho's signature. Is the note that is written also Ho's handwriting?
Yes, it is clear. It is Ho's handwriting.
And for the record, could you read what Ho wrote at the bottom of this list?
Allow me to read a bit further from the top part. Made on 23rd July 77, including 160 children, altogether from the rice fields section, 178 persons.
So there are 18 persons who are identified by name. The note indicates there would be a total of 178, including 160 children. What happened to the 160 children that are referenced in this document?
Let we look at the title of this document together. The title reads the names of prisoners smashed by Israel's section, or Hui at the rice field. So it means that 178 people were smashed, including 160 children and 18 adults.
In situations where people were sent from Huisrei's unit, Praisar, to be executed, do you know were they sent directly to Chang'ak, or did they come to S21, the S21 prison first, before they were sent to Chang'ak?
I did not administer this process. However, I can talk about the general principle. There was no procedure to transport people from Praisor to Phnom Penh and back from Phnom Penh to Praisor or to Chiang Ai. So this is a clear example that they were transported from Praisor directly to Chiang Ai.
And this document concerns prisoners from Brother Huisrei's unit, but the document is signed by Hor. Can you explain why it is that Hor signed this document?
It was not Srai's unit who wrote this document based on its content. They refer to prisoners smashed by Huisrai unit. So I believe this document was written by someone in Phnom Penh, and that could be Comrade T. But I believe this document was drawn up by people in Phnom Penh about the activity of Huisrai unit. And it was not Huisrai itself who compiled this document. And for that reason, we see the signature of Ho on this document.
Mr. Witness, this evidence indicates that on one day, a single day, 160 children were killed. Do you have any sense, any estimate for the court as to how many children were killed over the entire course of S21's operations? Are you able to give us any estimate?
It is very difficult to provide you an estimate. For example, when I was asked about the workforces of I-21, and I said that there were about 600, but when I saw the statistic on the documents, the number differs. So it is very difficult for me to give you an estimate on the number, my primary task while I was chief of the center was to read documents, read lots and lots of documents, and to make a report. I led the people collectively, and my subordinates were responsible for their tasks individually. For example, if the people had to be smashed, it means the instruction had to be implemented and prisoners had to be smashed. And as we could see, there were only 3 surviving children. And as this is a clear example, it would not make sense to transport people from Preso to Phnom Penh and then to Chiang Ai. Then an efficient way, that is to transport those people from Preso directly to Chiang Ai.
One last question relating to the children. In a testimony that you gave on the 22nd of June 2009 in your trial, this is E3/5802 at 9:35 in the morning, you said the following, quote, all the children would be separated from their parents. The majority of them were sent to the rice fields at Presar, and then they would be smashed. And the rest will be killed around the compound of the Ponhe Yat College, end of quote. Were some of the children who arrived at S21 killed in the surrounding area of Tuol Sleng? And if so, who was responsible for those executions? Who was responsible for carrying out those executions?
I acknowledge people were killed around the areas of Punyayat College when it was needed. That is when prisoners arrived, and we had to have rooms to accommodate them. As for the children were to be killed at the Chiang Ai.
All right, let's. I'm going to turn to another subject now, and we're going to talk about interrogations of S21 prisoners. And I want to start with some questions about the general procedures relating to interrogations at S21. And my first question is, when new prisoners would arrive at S21, how is it determined which prisoners would be interrogated and to which interrogator or to which interrogation group they would be assigned? Can you tell us how that decision was made?
Prisoners that I assigned upon to questioned were those who were interested by the upper level and that they wanted their statements. There was one prisoner that I was strictly instructed from the upper echelon to interrogate by myself, that is Koi Trun, and another one, Sambat, who was from 170 unit and from the East Zone, and Ho was strictly assigned to interrogate that person without beating him up. Besides these two special individuals, with instructions from the upper echelon, I would authorize my subordinates to interrogate those prisoners. So, since the time that I started to become chairman of S21, I only questioned one person, that is Koi Trun, in person. And for other important prisoners, it was Camera Bon who questioned them.
For the other members of the interrogation groups, do you know how it was decided which prisoners would be assigned for interrogation and to what groups they would be assigned? Are you able to explain that to us?
Regarding the level of importance of prisoners and whom to be assigned to, in fact, Bon and Her were closely related to this matter, so they were aware of which or of who were important. And for that reason, upon the arrival of those prisoners, then they would assign investigators, rather interrogators, to question them. In some other instances, for example, regarding the 4 Westerners, I was the one who assigned interrogator to interrogate them, that is, to give them to Brother Mom Nai, and the other 2 were given to Bon. As for Vietnamese Jun soldiers and Jun civilians, Mom Nai was the exclusive interrogator of these Vietnamese people, since he studied Vietnamese and he could communicate in Vietnamese with these people. He actually learned from 2 prisoners in the compound to learn and to speak Vietnamese better. So, as I said, I interrogated one important person only. Mom Nai was in charge of interrogating Vietnamese prisoners, and the rest was depending on the other interrogators.
With your leave, Mr. President, I'm going to have at times questions for the witness where I want to refer to the 3 notebooks from S21 interrogators that are in evidence. I've put the documents into a binder so that the witness can have it there, so we don't have to be moving papers back and forth. For the record, the 3 notebooks that have been identified as S21 notebooks from S21 interrogators in order here: E3/8368, E38368, which is the notebook that on the cover page is referred to as a statistics list of special branch, is the title on the cover of this notebook. The second one is E3/834, E3834. This is the notebook that is normally referred to as the Pon Tui notebook. And the third is E3/833, E3/833, which has been identified as Mom Nai's notebook. With your leave, can I provide the binder to the witness?
Yes, you can.
The specific reference is that I want to ask you about right now is in Mom Nai's notebook. So it's the last, it's the third and last tab in there. And if you could turn to page Khmer 000778995. If you need any help finding that page, please let us know. But the Khmer page in the Mam Nai notebook E3/833, it is Khmer 000778995. This page has an English-only translation 00184-607. On this page of Mam Nai's notebook, the following note appears. Since April 77, we have the following groups: cold, hot, making documents, and Group A. My question to you is, what was Group A? We've heard testimony about the other three groups. Do you know what Group A was?
My apology, I cannot locate the relevant page on the binder. President, court officer, could you assist the witness?
And court officer, it's page 000778995, and it's the last document. So 77895. Do you see the reference to the interrogation groups and a reference to Group A? And can you tell us what Group A was?
My apology. I cannot probably respond precisely to your question since this matter happened a long time ago. It is possible that this group was a special group to interrogate special prisoners, and if I'm able to read the whole document, maybe I can provide a better answer, but from a quick look, I can say that this refers to a special group.
Let me read to you some of your prior testimony and see if that might help. On the 16th of June, 2009, testimony in E3/5800, E3/5800, testimony at 9:56 to 9:59 that morning. You gave the following testimony. Quote, interrogation at S21 took place by what I can call the preliminary interrogation team. This team would only ask questions to grasp the core essence of the confession, and then Hoare would make a decision with consultation with me, or make a decision alone whether the people would be sent to a respective group, for example, cold, hot, or chewing. Do you remember the preliminary interrogation team, and was that the same as Group A, or was that a different team?
There might exist a preliminary investigation team, and to my understanding, it was Ho himself who led the preliminary investigation, interrogation rather, in order to grasp the situation. However, there existed a special group whereas Comrade Tui and Pon to interrogate important cadres. That's for Pon. As for Tui, sometimes it's a bit risky to have Tui interrogate those important prisoners, since he might resort to torturing them. And this Group A could be that special group. And I did not know whether this group has to take authorization from Ho or not. To my knowledge, I coordinated this group based on the instruction from the upper echelon to interrogate important cadres. And if Pon were so busy, then Tui would be assigned. As for the hot method or the cold method, that refers to the method of interrogating prisoners. The first was cold, second was hot, and the third method was chewing. And I believe this is mentioned in the notebook. That they actually copied the presentation that I made regarding these methods. And there is no need for me to comment on the three methods.
Yeah, thank you. What I want to focus on now, what I'd like to try to understand is, when prisoners were first assigned to an interrogator, how was the interrogator informed of what the accusations were against the prisoner? How were they briefed on that? Were there documents that came with the prisoners when they arrived? Were interrogators given confessions that had implicated the person that they were to interrogate? How were the interrogators told what you called what was to be the essence of the confession, what they were to interrogate the prisoner about?
Your question is very important. And at S21, there was an introductory part to the biography. I instructed the staff to use cold methods to understand the weak and the strong point of the enemy. Let me use the word enemy, since that word I used at the time. That is to use the cold method for the prisoners to speak about their biography or their background. Then we could listen to it and try to find the weak points and focus on those weak points. And I want the interrogators not to allow the enemy to understand the points that we want them to speak on. So what we do is to allow the prisoners to speak and try to catch the weak points and use those bad points to question them, to grill them on those points. And then we could observe the reaction from the prisoners. That is my instruction. So as you can see, in relation to I-71 documents, you could usually see prisoners talking about their backgrounds. And I was actually asked why I allow prisoners to speak at length about the background and why not to talk about the current situation. I did not respond to that comment by my superior, but that was the method that I used. So responses or confessions from the enemy started with their backgrounds. And as I said, that was the method that I used.
In cases where the person to be interrogated had been implicated by a previous prisoner, were the interrogators given the confession of the person who had implicated the person they were interrogating?
No, I never did it. I never let the confession from the previous person who implicated the arrestee for the arrestee to see it. When the person was first brought in, we tried to grasp the general biography of that person. And based on knowledge from the previous people, we could identify some aspect related to the new person that we just brought in. But we never showed the confession from the previous person to the new person that we just brought in.
Perhaps my question wasn't clear. I wasn't asking whether you showed the confession to the prisoner. I was asking whether the interrogators had access to the confessions so they knew what had been said about this person.
In S21, generally, we did not allow the confession that implicated another person for that person to see it. We allowed our staff to search for the information from the prisoner by themselves, and we let them answer whatever they wanted to give to us.
I'll come back to this with some specific documents on this a little later. Let me read to you, well, before I do that, where were confessions when they were completed? You sent copies to your superior. Did you keep copies? Where were the copies at S21 kept? In what office? Where were the confessions from past prisoners kept at S21?
Thank you. The confessions from prisoners were mostly sent to the superior. If the confessions implicated people in the zones, and then I send those confessions to the zones level. For example, some confession implicated people in the West Zone, in the East Zone. I made 3 copies. 2 sent to the West Zone, and another one sent to the East Zone, and 1 we kept at S21. And most of the confessions that we kept at S21 were kept at my house.
Did you organize those confessions yourself, or did you have someone who organized and filed them for you?
Comrade Chen, my messenger, were responsible for keeping these confessions, and for others, it was a host's responsibility.
On this issue of assignment of prisoners to units, I want to ask you about some testimony that Prak Khan gave on the 27th of April this year, 2016, in the transcript at around 10:41 in the morning. He testified that he was in the chewing or documentation unit, and he said the following in relation to the stage of the interrogation process at which prisoners would normally be assigned to his unit. I quote, "Beside the chewing unit, there were 2 other units called the cool and hot unit. After prisoners were interrogated exhaustively, and then the prisoner was sent to the chewing unit. The prisoners I interrogated at that time were mostly those who were already tortured exhaustively, and then they were sent to my unit so we could chew them for more information. There were only a few cases where new prisoners were sent to my unit." End of quote. What was the reason that prisoners were first interrogated by the cold or hot units before being sent to the chewing unit? What was the reason for that?
This was just principle, but for the real implementation, it was the coal unit who carried out the work. And as I told you earlier, for the coal unit, when the prisoner were brought in, the coal unit asked the prisoner to tell about the biography. And after they got some answer related to the biography, the prisoner were put aside. And then it was the hot unit who took on the job to grill for more answers. For example, I give you an example of a person who was a member of the general staff. He was third in hierarchy in the general staff. he was a member, a candidate of the Central Committee of the party. I ordered Pon to interrogate, but he could not get the answer, so I assigned it to Comrade Tui. And Comrade Tui used the hot methods to interrogate. And Brother Tum gave the answer that we did not believe. He answered that he committed moral offense with his own daughter. And we could not accept this answer because we thought that it was just his excuse because of the too bad method used by Comrade Tui on him. So that is my that case was an answer that I explained to you about when methods, various methods, cold, hot, or chewing were used. Another example was about Comrade Sambat, who said that he the one who threw the bomb. And then we made the report and we sent it to the superior, and the superior assigned us to assign to the other unit to interrogate for more answer. As for Ton's testimony regarding the chewing for more information, that rarely happened because we had so many prisoners that we needed to interrogate. So only very few of them went to the chewing stage. And I would like to clarify to you that some of the prisoners, their standard of knowledge were even higher than the interrogators. For example, Koi Thuan, he was very knowledgeable or tactical in giving the answer. So when he was arrested, I hid behind the curtain, and once he was arrested, I came out from behind the curtain and I interrogated him. I asked him what happened, and then he told me that, "Comrade, you don't need to interrogate me. I can report about my case to the Angkar." I told him then that now in such condition you cannot report to Angkar. You can only give your answer to me and I can report to Angkar on your behalf. So when Koi Thuan was put aside, and then I interrogated a brother, and I told him that if you wanted to report to Angkar, I can be your messenger. I can report on your behalf to Angkar. So after he agreed, and then he wrote down, he produced a page of writing, and then he tore the paper apart and break down the pen and throw the paper and the pen away. And then I told my people that we had to look at him carefully to prevent him from committing suicide. And after 1 hour, and 1 hour later, I came back and talked to him again. I told him that I would not beat him up to death. I would keep him remain like it was, and I encouraged him to write down his confession. And I promised with him that I would not read what he wrote down. And finally, he agreed to write down his confession. And
Son Sen kept calling me about the result of his confessions, and I told him maybe finally we received answers from the confession. So that was a strategy that I employed at the time. Sometimes I had to lower myself against the enemy by employing the cold method, and that produced a result. Khoi Thun actually wrote his confession for a number of 4 times. And Son Sen told me that, in fact, his confession, that is the third one, was the true one. As for the rest, they were fabricated. And I believe the interrogation was successful. We had to make a clear distinction between our position and the position of the enemy. So sometimes there were risks in employing a particular method during the interrogation, and maybe the testimony by Khon could be true to an extent, but not everything.
The first person you mentioned, the first prisoner you indicated was someone who Tui had interrogated because he had not been cooperating. You said he was third in hierarchy of the general staff. Are you referring to Sit Che alias Tum? My pronunciation probably isn't correct. Is that the prisoner?
Yes, that is him.
We'll come back and talk, because I want to ask you specifically about your interrogation of Khoi Thun. I'll do that a little later. For now, I want to just ask some general questions about the interrogation process and team. During the time that you were the chairman of S21, how many interrogators were there who worked at S21?
I cannot recall it. And the interrogation teams kept changing. Those interrogators who interrogated the prisoner and the prisoner died during the interrogation, that interrogators was also punished. For example, the case of Hak, who was the interrogator, he beat up the prisoner until the prisoner died, and he was removed. So I would like to clarify that the interrogation team and the methods of interrogation kept changing from time to time.
Mr. President, if I may, I'd like to provide to the witness document E3/1170, E3/1170, and the specific page that I will ask him about is Khmer 00443-015. Again, Khmer 00443-015, English 00602-543, French 00544-894, and I believe in the English and French translations it should be the first page or close to the first. May I provide this to the witness?
President, yes, you may proceed.
Mr. Witness, I've given you some of the pages from this notebook. The page that I'm particularly interested in is the very first page, as there is a list of S-21 interrogators divided into 4 groups, and then a list of a total of 31 people. A first general question, do you recognize any of the handwriting that appears in the various pages that I've given you from this notebook?
Thank you. Except page 1 with Eon 003016, the other pages, the handwriting belong to Brother Momnai.
And looking at the very first page, and I'm directing you to the right-hand side of the first page, where there is a list of S-21 interrogators. Was this Mamnai's handwriting, or is this someone else's handwriting?
I saw.
I thought that it was not Momnai's handwriting. Momnai's handwriting started from page from 0403016.
That contain charts of organizations from a number of zones and units. That is Momnai's handwriting. Is that correct?
From page 0443016, that was the handwriting of Brother Momnai.
We can come back to these other parts later. Can you go back to the first page that has the names of the interrogators in the various units? There's listed here a total of about 31 people, 27 to 31 people. Does that refresh your memory that at least at some point there was a total of around 30 interrogators at S-21? And second, do you recognize the names of the people that are on this list.
They no. On page 00, 44, 30, 16, I refer to the Khmer document. I don't know about the English document. In Khmer document, page 00, 44, 30, 16, President, Co-Prosecutor, please specify the numbers in Khmer document.
Mr. President, I think the witness is now looking at the second Khmer page 0044316, which corresponds to English 0060254, which is a chart, I believe, of the Northwest Zone Army. The previous page before that is the... Yes.
President, please hold on. Witness, I looked at page 2 with ERN in Khmer 00443016 that talk about the army in the Northwest Zone. And for the page 00443015, it was not Mom Nai's handwriting. It was the list of the interrogators at S21. I cannot recall it whether at that time it was me who made it or Comrade Ho who made it. There were, at some point, the numbers of interrogators decreased because some of them had committed wrongdoing and they were punished and removed or smashed. At some point, the number of interrogators increased, especially at the time when the numbers of interrogators decreased, and then I asked Ho to recruit some from the special unit to be incorporated into the interrogation unit. So I recognize or acknowledge that although this list may not be met by Brother Mom Nai, I acknowledge that at one point there was around 33 interrogation units who were categorized into different teams. Interpreter correction, 33 people. President, the hearing today came to an adjournment. The chamber will resume its hearing tomorrow from 9 o'clock to hear the witness Kang Kik Il alias Dutch. Please be informed. the chamber would like to thank witness Kang Kik-il alias Dutch. The hearing of your testimony as a witness is not concluded yet. Therefore, you are invited to come back to testify tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Court officer, in collaboration with WISU, please make necessary transport arrangement to